Hey everyone, welcome back, and in this video let's just go ahead and try to learn about HTML, CSS, JavaScript and React by building an actual project, an actual social media clone where we will not implement the backend. We'll just try to keep our focus on the front end things but still try to create an API layer of backend using local storage. So we will use local storage for handling things like login, registration, signups, everything, feed even, but we will not use backend. Now, this is not something which you would actually do in a real world project. You will never really use local storage for login, but the purpose of this project is to make your front end skills stronger. So I'm going to go to codedamn.com/project/bird app. I can leave the link in the description as well. I'm going to click on continue building. For you, it would probably show start building over here. So I'll just also reset my project once so that any further change or any past change which I did is removed so that we start fresh on this account. Now, once this project boots, you will see that this project is all about building a small but functional social media app like Twitter. What we have to build is these three things, majorly these three things: user authentication via local storage, feed logic, and CRUD on ports. I can just zoom in a little just for a little bit of more visibility. And we also have a nice project checklist over here, which we can tick once we have done. So, just building a landing page for social media and so on. So let's just go ahead and start taking a look into our app. So you can see we have a file structure, a folder structure where we have an SRC folder and all the things. So what we can do is we can start with basically the same structure if we want. We can start with, let's say, creating a pages folder, which can contain all of our pages. So I can say this is, let's say, home.jsx. And I'm not gonna get a lot into CSS and styling because our focus would more be on the logic part. So I can say function home and return. We can return a few links from here. We can say li and ahref. I can say register. Okay, so here's a very basic home component, which you can see I have created. This could just render two links, register and login for now. All right, so the next thing we're gonna do is install React Router because that is something which we will need for the navigation of the app. You can check the React Router docs, but I'll just use yarn for now and add React Router DOM version 6 so that even if you watch it later down the line, it doesn't break the compatibility. Once you have added React Router DOM, it should be fairly straightforward to start working with React Router. So I can just go to index.jsx. One thing which you can see is that we are using React 17 syntax. If I go to package.json, you can see that we are actually running React 18. So we can technically use the React version 18 way, that is using create root. So I'm just gonna switch to that real quick. I'm gonna say right here that this is, instead of root, we can do a container as this. Then I can say root is react dom.create root container. And then finally we can render root.render the app which we have over here, right? Now this app syntax over here, what we can do in order to include React Router DOM is say that we have a React Router DOM dependency, but we also have a browser router right here. So now if we surround this with browser router, this should start working in terms of the routing logic. So it should start picking up the React Router DOM things. Okay, so once this is done, we can move on to app.jsx and try to render our routing logic over here. So we can say something like routes, which again would be imported from React Router DOM. So let me just go ahead and get rid of this. Import routes from React Router DOM like this. And here we can start specifying our links. So we can say route path home. The element for this should be our home component, which is what we can import from the, from home, from pages. Okay, let's just push this terminal a little back. Let's just give it a refresh. Let's just take a look at what we have in the browser console. We don't have route defined, so there we go. And the second is that we are importing create root from React DOM. It should be done from create root client. So fixing a couple of warnings, we see that it should probably now start working. You can see we have our register and login links, which we initially aimed to have right here. Okay, another thing which we'll have to do is switch this to link components instead of ahref. So I'm going to say React Router DOM. I'm going to add link to, and then link to login as well. This is because we want our page to smoothly navigate instead of just refreshing. And here we can say hello to our social media app, something like this. Of course, you can spend a little bit more time in order to, just revamp the UI a little bit, add some CSS and so on. I'm just gonna keep our social media app a little simple for now. Okay, the next thing we need to do is add paths for login and register. So for the same thing, we can say login right here, and we can say register right here, and I can just say login from pages login, and same thing for register. There we go. Now let's just go ahead and create a login.jsx and a register.jsx file. Now let me just close up a few of these because it's becoming a lot of tabs. So if we go to readme right here, we can check off building a landing page, and we are in the process of building these two as well. So I'm just might as well just check them off right now. So there we go. Now let's just go ahead and start working with register page first, because we need a little bit of logic over here as well. I'm gonna add a register and return div register to our app, something like that. And I can say export default register. Same thing for login, so that our apps at least start working, because right now we include a broken link in app.jsx. So you can see right here, if I give it a refresh, and if I go to register page, this URL, this route just works fine. Okay, so now you can see register to our app is a link. The next thing which we can do is include just a simple input type text, placeholder, username, and that's it. We can also do an input type text, or input type password, placeholder password, and then input type submit, value, create account, right? So we'll have a very basic form with us over here, which will help us register the users. And again, just like we used to work in React, what we can do is we can say form on submit is register user. And inside this function, we can add our logic. The first thing we have to do is, of course, we don't want the form to submit like the browser way, because we will add custom JavaScript, but we want it to at least console log for us to see what the data is. Username, password. Let's just create a couple of state variables as well. Username, set username, use state, empty string. Similarly for password, set password, empty strings. Value, username, on change, set username, e.target.value, right? This is how you set values and input fields, and we'll work on a prettier extension very soon inside of codedamn playground, so you don't have to manually format your lines a little bit like this. We can do the similar thing for password. We can say this is password, type password, and instead of this, it's password and set password. There we go. Now, if I go ahead and take a look at the page itself, let's just see use state is not defined. So let's just go ahead and import use state over here. Once we take a look at that and clear the console as well, if I enter hello world, create account, you can see that we get username hello and password as world, which is awesome, right? So now what we have to do is create something of a layer of a local storage layer or something which helps us interact in a proper way. So what we can do is inside of src folder, we can create a util folder and we can add a local storage.js file. Now what this will do is that it will keep a few of the utilities of local storage, which will help us interact with it. So the first thing we can do is export function create user, right? Which will accept a username and a password, right? Now this function right here, this function would be able to return true if user is created, or maybe something like return status true if user is created, returns status false, error as message if there is an error, right? Because now you can also add some sort of validation or something in your create user check. So the next thing which you will do is you will start by getting a local storage key. So we'll get a user's key. We can probably set a const user key is user db key, something like that, as codedamn users, right? So you can see, say local storage dot get item as user db key. We can say if user's key does not exist, that means probably this is the first time someone used it, right? That is the, you know, the website in general itself. So we can switch it to let, and we can say user's key is an empty array within a string. Why did we do that? Because we'll parse it as a JSON in the next you know, line. So you can say users array is json.parse users key. Now ideally we should have a structure in JavaScript in JSON object inside of users array containing all the users. So what we can do next is we can find if there is another user with similar username. So we can say users array dot find user.username is equal to username, which was specified to us. Now what we are doing here is that we are actually trying to see if there is any user which exists in the same array which also has the same username. That means we have a duplicate. So we can say if there in fact is a duplicate, then we just return status error username already exists, right? If there is no duplicate, we can start creating the account. You can also add an optional check of password strength here, 1.5 password strength check, which is actually one of the points in README as well, if I remember correctly. You can see that is how README also recommends us to store it in local storage. So that's what we are following. We have a username should be unique check added, password should be strong. This depends on, you know, a few little factors which you can incorporate. You can say if password.length is less than 2, you can just say return status error password 2e, right? Now again, it depends on how much validation you want to put in here, but that's what you can do for now. So password strength check. Now once everything has done, we can create the account. So what we can do is we can say users array dot push username and the password which we got, and then finally we can write or rewrite the local storage, right? So we can say local storage dot set item, the key is user db key and the value is json dot stringify users array, right? Because that's how we have to work with local storage. It can only store stringified values, nothing more, nothing less. So there we go. Now what we can also do is just have a utility function dump local storage, where we can just, you know, console.log local storage.get item user db key. Just doing this for now just to see it in the console over here. All right, so now what we can do is inside our registration we can just say const response is create user, and this create user obviously we'll get from the util slash local storage right here, and this create user would accept a username and a password like we talked about. We can say if response dot status is equal to, we have return status okay. Yeah, if it is okay, then what we're gonna do is we're gonna just say alert you are registered, like that. You can now log in, right? Else we just alert response dot error message, which we got back, right? Okay, I think that should be a little enough for us to work with the registration. And then finally we can also say dump local storage, this helper method which we created right here. We can just import it real quick, and there we go. For the most part, I think we should be done now. So if I enter hello again and create an account, you can see an alert, you are registered, you can now log in. Okay, and when we dump the local storage, we get the local storage as the following, right? If I refresh this page now, and if I go back to the registration page, and if I enter hello and then password as world and create an account, you can see the error username already exists, and our local storage dump does not rewrite or overwrite anything. So that's perfect because that's what we want. Okay, the next thing is we need to now work on login. Now this should also be relatively straightforward. We can just, for the most part, copy paste this registration page to save a little bit of time. We can just change these method names from register to login. The function name should be changed, and login into our app. Username and password should remain same. On submit, we can just do login user instead of register user, and there we go. Then inside of response, we don't have to create the user here. We have to try to log in the user. So we can again create a function, login user, username, password, and right here we'll probably do the same thing. So we'll have something like this. For here, we can just skip this check. So we can just say, if the user's key is not present, then we can just say status error, invalid credentials, right? Because it's no point in setting it to an empty array and then JSON parsing it to see if it exists or not. Okay, next thing we do is users array is JSON.parsed, and then right here, instead of duplicate, we actually try to find, in this case, if the user exists. If there is user with username, so we can say user is usersarray.find, user.username is username. Then that is not enough because we also need a password check. So user.password should also be equal to the password, which is being supplied right here. So right here, if we find the user, then it's okay. Else we just return status error and then error as invalid credentials. Right now, the next thing which we can do is we can just say auth user key, and we can just say this has codedamn authenticated user, right? This key would contain the username of the user which is authenticated, right? So what we can do inside of this login, that once we find a user, we can say local storage dot set item auth user key is user.username, or just username in general. Because now what we are essentially doing is we are setting this key as the authenticated user's key. Now anything and everything which we do on the website should be reflected via this particular key value, right? So that we can just query auth user key and figure out who is logged in. And that's it. Once we do that, we can just say return status okay, and we should have our user pretty much logged in. So we can go back to login.jsx, use the login user. We can just say you are logged in, welcome back. And obviously these alerts could be replaced with simple notifications. And yeah, we don't have to dump local storage here because that should be fine. Okay, another thing which we can do is navigate the user programmatically once they log in or sign up. So what we can do over here inside of registration as well, for example, we can import use navigate hook from React router DOM, and we can just say const navigate is use navigate hook. And once the user is registered, we can just navigate the user to log in, right? And we can also just replace this in history so that the user cannot come back to the registration page. Similarly, once the user is logged in, right here, we can just navigate the user back to dashboard, and we can say replace true, or maybe not, or yes, we don't want the user to return back to the login page anyway. And for the navigate to work, we'll just say use navigate as the hook. We will import use navigate from React router DOM, and there we go. Now we can actually log in with programmatically with path being changed and properly set. Let's try this app once we create a final dashboard.jsx page from React, right? And what we can do is function dashboard right here, export default dashboard. Over here, what we can do is try to get the current user. We can say user is use logged in user, right? And we'll get this hook from our util folder, util/local storage. So we can create this hook, export function use logged in user. we can say user set user. For now, we can just stick to username is use state of empty. We can say use effect that whenever this starts, we can just return username, use effect, and it should say local storage dot get item auth user key. We can just say const username is this. And then we can say if username, then we can say is logged in, set is logged in, use state unknown, something like that, right? So we can say if username is present, then we say set is logged in as yes, else set is logged in as no. And if it is present, then we also set the username as username, whatever we got, right? I do this in use effect because, you know, technically you can do it right here as well within the use state callback, but it's better to do it in use effect because in case if you want to switch this to an async operation like a network call or something, then this is how you should probably do it. Then finally, we can just return an object is logged in and then username, or you can just return an array, which is something like this, which is what hooks kind of really also work on in a way. So let me just close this out and say is logged in and then username, and we can set up return for now hello username, and while if is logged in is equal to unknown, we just return a loading message, right? And if we find out that if is logged in is equal to no in any case, then we just want to navigate away. So we'll just have a navigate as use navigation, and we'll import the use navigation from React router DOM. And once we have this with us, if we see that the user is not logged in, then we can just say that navigate away to home page, right? Otherwise, we just let the user see at what their username is. Okay, a lot of work. Let's just go ahead and try to register now an admin user. Admin, you are registered. Now we are on the login page. If I enter admin again, create account. Okay, we get an error that e.preventDefault is not a function. Okay, let's change a few things. Login, let's give it a refresh also. That should not be happening, most likely. Let me see why that is happening. We registered, that's okay. We should now try to log in. Admin, login. Okay, so there was a very dumb error over here, which you can see is that we are calling login user again, which is the same name of the function as of, you know, the one which we have imported, which we should have imported, that is this login user. Classic mistake of ignoring how to work with things. So let's just rename this as attempt login user. There we go. Let's rename this. And now we should have e.preventDefault working properly with the response working as well. Let's just go to login now. Let's just give it a refresh again. And once this starts working, I can go to login and enter admin, login, and you are logged in. Welcome back. So, okay, we don't have any routes matching dashboard now. So we're just gonna create a dashboard over here. We can just import the dashboard route like this as well. And this should just start working fine, right? So there we go. Now if we give it a refresh, we should be able to, okay, we have another use navigate issue. There we go. Now once this is done, log in into admin and admin, login, you're logged in, welcome back. Again, we have a few missing imports which should be fixed once we ship our TypeScript update on the playground. And looks like we have an error in the use logged in view, React, and use effect as well. And this should obviously go a little above. This comment was for some other resolver completely, which got pushed down. There we go. Give it a refresh and it should start working now. Login, admin, you're logged in. And a final error which we have to fix is this use effect right here, which should be hopefully the last error in this whole flow. Okay, one more thing which we have to be careful about is not to conditionally render hooks. In this case, we were doing a conditional render of use effect by mistake. So make sure all of your return statements are at the end, not before the hooks. Let's go to admin again, hit login, you are logged in, and now we get hello admin. So finally we have a little bit of working app where we have, a redirection setup. What we can also do is say link to logout, and we can just have a logout over here. We can create a logout.jsx page. We can add a very basic React component which has a use effect which runs on the page load, where we say local, or just logout user, something like that, where we import this logout user from util local storage, export default logout. We also navigate to dashboard finally, right? For this we need to import use navigate from React router DOM, and we need to use the hook navigate as use navigate like this. Finally, we also need a use effect hook right here to be imported, and that should be it. We can just say h1 logging out, something like this. Now, in order to create this, what we can do is we can just say export function logout user, and we can say local storage dot remove item as auth user key. That's it. That's all we need to do in order to log the user out. And finally, what we also can do is on our home page, we can set up a use effect check. We can say the same thing, const user is use logged in user, right? From our utilities. So use logged in user from util/local storage, right? This use logged in user which we have. And we can say that if, let's just copy this line itself. If user is logged in is yes, then we don't need the user over here. We can just say navigate the user to dashboard, and that should be it. Otherwise, we'll just continue working the way we are working, right? We can just say if is logged in is equal to unknown, return div loading, right? Something like this. And finally, don't forget to import, because that is what it keeps on complaining all the time. Link is also not defined inside of dashboard component. So let's just import link as well. There we go. And it should probably fix now. So I can log out now. Once I click on log out, no routes match location logout. Fair enough. Let's go back and let's just add a logout route as well. Okay. So finally, our little auth via local storage app should start working. I can log in. I can enter admin and admin, hit login. I am logged in. I'm logged in now. Now, if I refresh this, I will automatically get back to the login to the dashboard page. Okay, apparently that does not happen because is logged in is not added in the dependencies. And also we need to have a navigate here, use navigate, which would also be imported from React router DOM. There we go. So now let's just clear console, give it a refresh. You would be able to see now that is logged in gets triggered and we get automatically logged in on the dashboard page. Now, if I click on logout, we get a logout message, but no routes match home. That is also fair enough. Once we log out, we go to the home page, not the dashboard page. So that is one thing. And there we go. Finally, if we refresh, you should be able to see that you can create a user. Let's just create Mehul 12345, create account. I'm created Mehul 12345. If I hit login, okay, 12345 logged in. Hello Mehul. I log out. I'm back to the app. Now this is the basic, this is the very core of the app itself. If we take a look in the README, we haven't done everything. We have done this part. We have done the validation part. We have created this key. We redirect them to dashboard. We are using a key for authentication. We are missing the social media part of things currently. which is, creating a feed in the social media key and letting the user create the post as well. That could be part 2 of this video, of this project. You can find the link of the part 2 when it comes out in the description of this video. But that is all for this one. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel. That's all for this video. I'm gonna see you in the next one really soon. If you're still watching this video, make sure you comment down in the comment section, I watched this video till the end. Also, if you're not part of codedamn's Discord community, you're missing out a lot on events which we organize on a weekly basis to code. You already know the drill. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and thank you so much for watching.